Good morning. Good morning. I'm having technical difficulty.
It's too early in the day to have technical difficulties already.
It's Ted early in the day. I'm having myself the technical difficulties. I have too many tabs open and sounds blaring in my ear because, of course, why wouldn't I? Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. You are tuned in to the TMI show, Ted Manila Information Show, TMI for short, obviously. That over there is not the T. That over there is producer Robby, who is filling in for the Ted, who is...
I'm not the Ted?
He's not. You're not the Ted.
Are you sure I'm not the Ted?
The Ted is traveling to an undisclosed location this week. So it is going to be Robby and I being Manila Chan. It's going to be just the two of us this week. We're going to keep the show shorter than usual this week because personally, I would like to keep producer Robby gainfully employed at his regular job.
Well, I would.
I don't want to be responsible for...
I would prefer to be gainfully employed full time with the TMI show. Just saying.
Me too.
So
maybe
Rumble,
we'll get there.
Rumble. I'm looking at you, Chris. I know that you watch the show. Hook us up. I know you can do this.
Maybe we will get there very soon. I mean, we're 6 months old, so we're humming along. We are officially Rumble content creators now. We are going to be publishing premium only content, full interviews that are going to be spicy. I guess that's the whole point of this. I know you see that with like Russell Brand and all of the big content creators like Steven Crowder. And I guess this is why now I understand why they do that, because
but here's where we're going to be different though, because especially with Steven Crowder, he's going to bring people on who are approved by certain elitist circles. I mean, like Ted Poole. I mean, let's just be honest.
Tim Poole, not Ted.
Yeah, whatever. They're all the same. Listen, I am the master of misinformation. So I'm going to spit information right here, right now. That maybe I'm just tired. I don't know. But one thing I'm looking forward to, I'm going to reach out to Mark Sablota later on. and I'm going to tell them, hey, we're going to do a Rumble only show, and you can be completely unfiltered, tell us exactly what's going on with no filter at all. And for the record, I just want to let you know, I was right. And you and Ted were wrong. This thing in Ukraine is not going. It's not going to stop anytime soon.
I didn't say it was stopping soon. Me and Mark said that it wouldn't end probably maybe at the end of the year. It wasn't me. That was Ted.
Well, you're kind of clinging to that whole hope thing. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
Hope, but that is very different than my actual assessment. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in one of the stories.
That's my favorite story, though.
We will talk to Mark about that because as we've mentioned a couple weeks ago, Mark, in this particular time slot when the TMI show goes live Monday through Friday, we start at 10 and we're off the air roughly sometimes an hour, 90 minutes ish. In that time frame, Mark has some personal conflicting scheduling stuff Monday through Friday. So he cannot be a party to that until much later in the day. So we will be able to bring Mark back onto the show in pre-tape form as premium content to satisfy that portion of our Rumble creator program deal. So
and for those of you who are not subscribed to Rumble Premium, if you're on the Rumble channel, you will see a button right there that says Premium. Click on it. It's $10 a month that we're able to support Rumble, and Rumble will give us a portion of that subscription cost to support the show. So,
and you guys go get commercial free everything that's on Rumble. So, personally, I'm not gonna lie, I do like the mint snuff commercials. The beavers doing the mint snuff, the good stuff. I like that commercial. My son learned all the words and he sings it. But now we don't get commercials, so I don't get to see the mint snuff commercial. I kind of miss it. I like mint snuff.
We can always log out of your account and then watch, and that way you'll start getting ads.
Yeah, but it's not a promise that I'll see my favorite commercial.
Of course. So you just gotta keep
cute commercial.
Yeah, you just gotta keep spamming
How come we don't have mint snuff, Robby? How come we didn't get mint snuff as a commercial? Haven't seen mint snuff.
Yeah,
I like it.
I don't know. I have no answers for you.
All right. So with that, we're going to try to keep this show under an hour, so that way we don't get Robby fired from his real job, because right now TMI ain't paying so well. We're live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. So guys, please be sure to like and follow this show. Shout out to Adrian over there out in Europe, becoming a premium subscriber. I promise you won't be disappointed, Adrian. We won't let you down. I have some stuff cooking that I have not run past Ted, Robby. So I'm going to go ahead and just book these things as I see fit that I have not checked with Ted, but it's not my fault that he planned this travel as soon as we became.
Hey, listen, my job is to support the talent. I work on the back end, unless y'all absolutely got to have my ugly mug on the screen. So, I mean, you do what you got to do.
So, this right here, I'm wearing a Manila t-shirt. It says Manila, Philippines. But I plan on doing some things. If you guys have followed my career at RT, I plan on booking some people from In Question and doing panels. Ted has not agreed to any of that, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because Ted ain't here.
Oh, hey, listen, I love panels, especially ones that get spicy where people disagree, and that way just kind of just fight it out. Like I would love to get Caleb Maupin and Achilles Larry on at the same time. That would be epic.
Well,
just saying.
Or
Bubba.
We'll see.
Or Bubba. Oh my God. Could you imagine Bubba?
Too many slings and arrows. I don't even want to reveal the names. I'll just say, if you have followed my career and followed In Question, you will see some of the panelists that I used to bring onto the show back then. I plan on trying to revive that in the premium content. So it'll be more flexible since it doesn't have to be live. Is that right, Robby?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because
The Rumble.
basically what you would do is I'll tell you I'll tell you off
Yeah.
off
But
air.
anyway,
Yeah, I
so
can make that work.
the rules are we don't have to be live, so we can record
Right.
it. So that opens up a whole world of other people that we can bring on. So thank you, Adrian, and thank you, anybody else. If I've missed you, if you have subscribed, if you're watching on Rumble, and hit that red Rumble Premium button next to the TMI show logo, right underneath our talking heads here, you're going to be in for a good time because I've got some ideas. Anyway, all right, let's head into the actual show. I'm going to try to do both, reading the headlines and running all the video content.
Do you want me
So
to read the headlines?
we can let's see. I never get to read them, so I kind of want to read them.
Okay.
So
Well, you also
let's
read
head.
better than I do. You know, me being an uneducated hick from the
Well,
South.
there's
So
that.
there's
There,
that. Yes.
sure. There's
That
that.
well, that and Ted says I read too slow anyway.
Well,
So
it's your Southern drawl, but then I kind of have some experience reading the news.
that's
You
true.
may have heard. So. All right, we're throwing this up there first and foremost because it's related to Iran and the Houthis. So I'll get to this after I read this portion, but I think there's a lot to unpack here, Robby. So let's get to it.
Okay.
US President Donald Trump said he wants Iran to completely scrap its nuclear program as negotiations between the two countries have been postponed. The president was asked by Kristen Welker, a former neighbor of mine, on NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday whether he was aiming to limit or completely abolish Iran's nuclear program. Quote, total dismantlement. Yes, that is all I would accept, Trump said. He questioned the necessity of the Islamic Republic having nuclear technology for electricity generation. He says, quote, they have so much oil. Why do they need it?
Because they can't sell it.
So we'll get to that. Quote, they have so much oil. Why do they need it? Civilian nuclear energy often leads to military wars, and we don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple deal, he said. Quote, I just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon because the world will be destroyed, Trump added. He made his remarks after Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi announced that the fourth round of indirect mediated U.S.-Iran talks planned for Saturday had been scuttled indefinitely, quote, for logistical reasons. That, is diplomatic speak for some shit hit the fan behind the walls and that you can't see behind the door. But that's diplomatic speak. The negotiations previously described by both sides as constructive have been overshadowed by tensions in Yemen, where the U.S. and Britain have ramped up airstrikes against Houthi militants. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to retaliate after a Houthi ballistic missile landed near Ben Gurion Airport outside of Tel Aviv on Sunday, injuring 8 people reportedly so far. Israel's main airport was struck by a ballistic missile fired by Yemen's Houthi rebels on Sunday morning. The missile hit a grove near an access road inside the perimeter of Ben Gurion Airport there in Tel Aviv. The IDF confirmed that it failed to intercept the missile despite several attempts. Quote, an impact was identified in the area of Ben Gurion Airport, the IDF said in a Telegram post. The Israeli Air Force is investigating the failure. Kind of like the failure on October 7th, I wonder. The Houthis, who control West Yemen, including the capital and the port of Hodeidah, have launched a number of drones and missiles at commercial vessels passing through the Red Sea and at targets in Israel over the past year, aiming to pressure West Jerusalem over its military operation in Gaza. The Houthis said they were aiming for, quote, a comprehensive air blockade of Israel in solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. Iran denied directing those attacks, calling such claims misleading. So not outright saying, no, they're just saying it's misleading. So,
I think it's probably pretty obvious that Iran at least knows that this is going on. I mean,
Right.
they're getting the weapons from somewhere. They're getting the supplies from
Sure.
somewhere. They're getting the training from somewhere. But now here's my question: we have American service members doing everything except pushing the button to shoot missiles into Ukraine, and that's okay. But Iran giving the same kind of support to Yemen because Yemen's the only country in the world with the big brass balls to stand up to Israel, and they're committing a genocide. But that's bad. Explain the hypocrisy to me. I mean, help me understand. I'm a slow redneck.
Hypocrisy is the golden rule in Washington, Robby. I've been here over a decade. And I've obviously been posted to Capitol Hill. I've talked to a lot of these lawmakers, and it just depends on where the winds blow and what's politically expedient and convenient for them.
And who's paying you, right?
The deep they play you. The deep state is the deep state. It's going to do what it do, and Washington will operate as however it needs to in order to advance its own designs. And in this case, well, up until Joe Biden and up until just this weekend, the US obviously doing what it does in Ukraine as a proxy war is allowed, it's permitted. Meanwhile, Iran, if they aren't allowed to do what the US does in terms of proxy war or with military support or whatever with anybody else, especially not the Houthis, who are the only ones, like you said, with the big brass balls to stand up to Israel. So this, that's kind of where we're at. And then, well, there's more to this. So, last week, President Donald Trump ordered the Pentagon to intensify strikes in Yemen and warned that the Houthis would be, quote, completely annihilated if they continued their attacks. The UK also taking part in these strikes, with the defense ministry there saying it targeted Houthi-controlled facilities. U.S. SecDef Pete Hegseth accused Iran of arming the Houthis and warned there would be consequences. Tehran is denying those claims. The U.S., however, announced sweeping sanctions on countries buying Iranian oil or petrochemicals just last week, citing Tehran's alleged role in fueling this conflict, among other things. So, but they're never, at this point, Trump hasn't said, well, Bibi is kind of fueling this conflict in and of itself. Russia has urged Washington to halt strikes on Yemen in a phone call just, I was going to say last month, but it's actually in March, when the Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called for an immediate end to the use of force and urged all sides to engage in political dialogue. So once again, we're hearing the Russians being the grown-ups in the room and saying the most sane things, right? And Sergei Lavrov, of course, you guys all know, I'm a big fan of Sergei, but he truly is a diplomat, and that's, for them to weigh in on this topic shows their position to the rest of the world as a global leader, right? And that a lot of people rely on them to try to keep a stable hand, especially when you have the orange man in office who is anything but stable, even though he says he's a stable genius. So here's what Trump says on his Truth Social: "Let nobody be fooled." Who talks like that? It's
like a cartoon villain.
Let nobody be fooled. The hundreds of attacks being made by Houthi, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen who are hated by the Yemeni people, all emanate from and are created by Iran. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis, in air quotes, will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that the force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they've lost control, but they haven't lost control. They're dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. I don't know why it's so-called. No. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of all caps again, Iran, and all caps, Iran, will be held responsible and suffer the consequences. And those consequences will be dire! Exclamation point. Signed, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States.
I would just point out a couple of things here real quick. One, the United States, using Saudi Arabia as its proxy, tried to take out the Houthis.
Right,
and they failed. The American proxy, Saudi Arabia, was defeated by the Houthis. The American Navy then tried to blockade Yemen, creating a famine, starving tens of thousands of people to death, maybe more. The Houthis are still there. They don't give a crap about you bombing them. They do not care. I think that what they realize is that America may have the watchers, but they have the time. I mean, they just don't care.
Yes, that's right.
They do not care.
That was the Taliban. I'm not equating the two of them, but that was the Taliban strategy, right? Was the Taliban famously said stuff like the U.S. has the weapons, but we have the time.
Yeah.
So
it's the same thing. You know, and I mean, just another thing I like to point out, as a MAGA type, I am sick and tired of instead of getting America first, we get Israel instead. I am sick and freaking tired of this. I mean, this is a betrayal of everything once again that Trump ran on. How is being Benjamin Netanyahu's bitch getting on his knees, asking him, Bibi, how would you like it today? I mean, how is this in any way, shape, or form America first? What exactly is the American global interest in the Red Sea? Can you explain it to me? I mean, you're a journalist. You've been doing this for a long time. But
3 to 4%.
Europe's a lot closer than we are.
Yeah, which is why the UK has jumped in. Yeah, but the UK, as we know, their military can barely fill up a football stadium. So
it's just it's sickening. And I wonder where the Trumpers are. How is this America first? Explain it to me. For you diehard MAGA types, explain to me how this works.
Look at this, Robby. So this is like a mile long, like just support for the Houthis. In Yemen. Trump says that the people of Yemen don't like them. I don't know who's telling him this because that's completely false. The Yemenis view the Houthis, sure, like there are factions of civilians in Yemen who do not favor the Houthis. I mean, they are a rebel group, but they've also become a political arm. And many years ago, before this blockade on Yemen began, when the power struggle was there was a power vacuum, of course, created because of their own political instability. And then like 3 or 4 different factions were trying to regain control. And when the Saudis got involved and the Emiratis got involved, it weakened basically every faction, 3 or 4 different factions. But the only one to emerge from the rubble, clear as day, were the Houthis. Yeah. And they actually do have a lot of support because the locals in Yemen, in large part, view the Houthis as freedom fighters because everybody else, there's France-aligned groups, there's like Saudi-aligned groups, there's all these people fighting for control over this little slice of land called Yemen. But the Houthis were the only ones that are their own nationalist movement, and they basically say, to hell with the West, get all the Westerners out of here. This is our country. We need to control it. And that's why they actually have broad support. So I don't know who Trump is getting this information from, but that's totally wrong that the Yemenis don't like the Houthis. That's not true. The vast majority of them do.
He's getting his information from Israel. I mean, let's be honest about this. And just one last thing before we move on to the next story. I just want to point out just how completely inept and incompetent and moronic Trump is. His strategy to punish Iran is to sanction countries that buy Iranian oil. So Trump, his great scheme is to accelerate the de-dollarization of the global system by imposing sanctions to punish Iran by weakening the American dollar. That makes zero sense to me, like none. That is beyond, that's suicidal. Iran is a member of BRICS. So if you're going to start
BRICS has no power really at this point. It's still an idea.
Sure, so. No, I completely get it. But I mean, but what Trump is saying is that he wants to impose sanctions on countries that buy Iranian oil.
Right.
Russia has already shown these countries that those sanctions do not matter. And then Russia has showed you how to get around them. So Trump's great idea to punish Iran is by destroying the fiat dollar that supports this whole Ponzi scheme that much faster. That'll show the Iranians has committed economic suicide. It's a great idea.
That's true.
It's
That's
dumb.
true. So so the Houthis are now, shooting down all of these millions of dollars worth of US drones that are being hovered over them in the Red Sea. And so it's just proving to be very, very embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put this out there, and I don't have concrete evidence to this, but I do have sources who have in the past told me, and in the span of the last 3 years since the Ukraine war started, have told me that many of these unaccounted for arms that have been sent to Ukraine have found their way to the Houthis.
Shocking.
So as much as we want to, so as much as we, we, the US, say that we want to, blame Iran for, you're arming the Houthis. No, actually, we are. The United States is. By way of sending countless unknown numbers of various arms into the black hole that is Ukraine. Should we be surprised that the Houthis have American weapons? Allegedly, I haven't confirmed this from my source, but that's what my source told me a couple years ago. And I forgot about it until right now. But
it's just dumb.
It makes sense. It makes total sense to me if in fact it has been confirmed that some of the arms like RPGs and shit like that, like small man portable arms like RPGs have been sold from Ukraine in the black market to Mexican drug cartels.
Mm-hmm.
That's confirmed. We know that for a fact. If that's being done there, what makes Donald Trump think, or probably not think, that American arms haven't found their way into Houthi hands?
Well, it's worse than that. I mean,
so
if the neocons get their way, if Bibi finally, after 20 years, gets America to fight its war for Israel, does no one stop to think for a moment what the global economic crisis that will cause? Because Iran they will turn off Middle East oil production. They will blow up every freaking refinery that they can get a hold of. This is economic suicide on a grand scale. And if your idea is to weaken Russia, then you probably don't want to take Middle Eastern oil off of the global market, because then Russia's the only game in town. I don't know who is advising Trump on this stuff. I don't know. I mean, is he truly
Trump is the Putin puppet? Obviously, Robby. He's trying to help Russia become the dominant oil supplier in the world.
So be it. So be it. More power to him.
Fine. Great. Okay. Like, do your thing, man. Do your jam, Trump. Do your worst, as they say. All right, let's move on to the second topic. He will. Second topic. Okay. So Russia is standing alone against the West, which is waging, quote, an existential war against the country. President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, has said. Putin made the remarks in a documentary titled Russia, period, Kremlin, period, Putin, period, 25 years, period.
Interesting name.
I know. It's filmed by the Russian broadcaster Rossiya 1, and they just dropped that film yesterday. So the film marks the 25th anniversary of Vladimir Putin becoming the country's president for the first time. I mean, he was in and out a couple of times with Medvedev, stepping in to his place for a little bit, but he was originally inaugurated May 7th of the year 2000. So this really brought Vladimir Putin, in the new millennium, into the main stage of global politics, reshaping Russia from its weak position on the world in the year 2000. I mean, it was still from a crumbled Soviet Union, right, when he took over the first time, and in the span of 25 years has now made it, I think it's now in the top if it's not 11 or 12, top 15 global economies in the span of 25 years. That's remarkable. So the documentary features conversations between Putin and journalist Pavel Zarubin on various matters, including hostilities between Ukraine and Russia, as well as a broader conflict between Moscow and the West. Quote, Russia is essentially standing alone against the collective West. This required a serious attitude to the possible development of the situation in this particular sense, Putin said in the movie. It has been clear from the early 2000s the West has been acting insidiously against Russia, speaking about one thing and doing the opposite, Putin noted. The West's failure to hear Russia's repeated warnings, as well as its refusal to fully recognize the country's sovereignty and respect its national interests, has ultimately led to the ongoing crisis, Putin explained. Quote, this civilized world decided that Russia had weakened. Historical Russia, called the Soviet Union, had collapsed, and the remaining parts needed to be finished off. The largest of them was the Russian Federation, and it also needed to be partitioned into 4 to 5 pieces. I was responsible for the future of the country. Of course, I began working to ensure that this never happened, he said. Moscow has repeatedly described the hostilities in Ukraine as a Western proxy war against Russia, in which Ukrainians are being used as cannon fodder. Russian officials have argued that the U.S. and other Western powers intentionally escalated tensions by disregarding Moscow's security concerns over NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe and its growing military cooperation with Ukraine. Russia and the collective West ended up locked in a, quote, existential war, as Putin describes it, stressing that many in the West have now openly admitted that. Back in March, for instance, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the conflict as, quote, frankly, a proxy war between nuclear powers, the United States helping Ukraine and Russia, and said the West should abandon its dead-end strategy of propping up Kiev for, quote, as long as it takes. So, Robby, I don't think Putin's wrong on this. Like,
No.
he's absolutely right. I think that was the whole point of the fall of the Soviet Union in the first place in the late 80s, right? The U.S. never wanted to see can you imagine? The Russia, the size that it is right now as a federation, sure. Biggest country on earth, right? It's twice the size of China by landmass. Vladimir Putin was tasked with keeping all of that together, and so it didn't become balkanized like the other smaller Soviet satellite states, right? It was an economy in the shitter in the year 2000 when he took over. And we keep wanting to call, we in the West want to call him this dictator, but there is a reason this dude always has like over 70% approval in his country. And it's not because the polls are faked or whatever. There have been international poll watchers there that have certified it. And even still, America's like, no way, no president gets 75% approval. Well, you do when you rescue a broken, battered shell of a country that it was in the year 2000, right? Because, the fall of the Soviet Union began crumbling at 88, 89 became 89 became official. So the 90s were the worst. It was the worst for Russia. Like there was economic stagnation, inflation was through the roof. People were drunk on the streets, homeless. That was exactly what the West wanted Russia
so you're saying it's California like it is now, is what you're saying. No, yes. You have no. So that's a good little parallel. But no, I completely agree with you. Me and my son, we had a conversation about this, and he's just like that. I don't understand why he's so popular. I said, so imagine you had a time machine, and if you went back in time, and if George Washington decided instead of running for 2 terms, I'm just going to keep running for president. That's in effect what you've got here. Right. Because Putin brought Russia back from the dead. He is a national hero. He resurrected Russia. I said, so in a lot of ways, there is a parallel between George Washington here in America, with that whole American mythology, with Vladimir Putin. I mean, he saved the country. And not only did he save the country, he made it strong. He made it from a defeated power on its knees, now once again into a superpower that, just like the Houthis, has punched Uncle Sam in the face. But unlike the Houthis, though, Russia's strong enough to kick Uncle Sam in the balls in addition to punch him in the face. And so what my question is, I mean, you have a lot of sources, a lot of people. Though Trump, he's kind of gone back. He said now Zelensky wants peace, and now Russia doesn't, and he's threatening to flood Ukraine with a lot of weapons. I'm still on Team Sabloda with this. I don't think the Russians are going to stop till you get to the Polish border, and I think that they are. I think the Russia's intention is to seek a strategic defeat of the West, because why wouldn't they? What are you hearing from people that like, are the Russians stupid enough to stop short of all their goals, allow Ukraine to be rearmed as a proxy NATO army again, with NATO weapons again, with NATO weapons training again?
Ukraine rejected Vladimir Putin's, 3-day pause because of the Victory Day stuff, right? Ukraine rejected it. Ukraine doesn't want to be a part of this Victory Day celebration, this moment of unity where, oh, gee, I forgot, because the Ukrainians supported the Nazis. So there's that. So for them, it's not Victory Day. It's
a Nazi state.
So I'm not saying everybody, but there is a huge Nazi contingent, especially in the position of power. And I think a lot of those people that were in positions of power are what forced Zelensky into the position that he's in. But now he's figured out the grift and he ain't going nowhere. So I haven't talked to many people this week at all. I've just had 50 other things going on. But my personal assessment of what's happening right now in the Ukraine war, I don't think Russia has a choice but to push. I don't know that they push all the way towards the Polish border.
Well, I think they would.
I think they would stop. They'd create like a artificial rump state. They'll make a line somewhere before they get to Kiev and say, now Ukraine gets to be, like 300 miles wide instead of being, like, I don't know, 1,400 miles wide or whatever it is. So we're just going to keep all of this, and you guys get to have this tiny little piece and basically create a new Kosovo for them. And here, you guys get to be the Kievians. You don't even get to be Ukrainians anymore. You get to be Kievians. And I think that's the only option that's left, because without Donald Trump doing what he promised he would do, which was to stop sending aid to Ukraine because they're fucking around, we'll fuck around and find out. He just allowed some Patriot air defense systems to go that way into Ukraine this weekend. He just signed off on them. But his reckoning for that was that, well, this is a defensive system. It's not an offensive system into Russia. So Putin
there's no such thing as a defensive military system. That is a misnomer. It doesn't exist.
It's an oxymoron. I know, but still, that's Trump's reasoning, how he reconciled saying, I'm giving Zelensky a Patriot battery for this, fend off.
You know the Russians.
More Russian
I've only ever talked to one in my whole life, so a lot of Russians. If Zelensky is stupid enough to attack Moscow on Victory Day,
which that's what he's threatening, if you guys haven't heard.
Yeah, if he is dumb enough to do that, what will Russia do?
I think this would.
Will Russia stop playing around then?
They'll stop dicking around. I think that would lead to full annihilation if the Zelensky regime was foolish enough to tacitly, openly be anti-Victory Day, that means you're pro-Nazi, pro-Hitler. That means you're, because that's the signal that you're sending. I think that'd be it. Like, I think his days are numbered, and I think some special services officers will find him. I think that remember a couple of years ago, like a year into the war, I forget which Israeli former prime minister said it, but he kind of revealed that Zelensky was like fearful for his life and was saying, "Oh, can you guys make sure that I'm not going to get offed in the meantime? Can you make sure the Russians don't kill me?" Um, well, I think that's back on the table. I think Putin was kind enough to spare him of, that direct that kind of direct offensive measure. I mean, there's nothing more offensive than offing the so-called president. At this point, he's the dictator of Ukraine. But you're cutting off the snake at its head. I don't know that this place has the capacity to be a hydra. And I think that's what's next. I think that's what's coming. Is if they were foolish enough to be disrespectful on Victory Day and strike civilians at the parade.
Well, what they're going to say, if they're going to say it would be a military target because of all the military hardware, the tanks, the missiles,
Sure.
that's how they'll spin it if they're dumb enough to do it.
Of course, that's
absolutely
foolish.
you're going to have heads of state there. You have Xi Jinping. You're going to have
yeah.
No, Rocket Man's going to be there from North Korea. He's going to be there. Maybe he'll take Putin out on another drive in a car. I mean, who knows?
On his train.
I mean, with the Ukrainian, are they truly that suicidal? That's the question. I mean, you're at the mercy of the least stable person.
Well, yes, but for Ukraine to take that step, don't you think if they did, that would mean, Robby, that Zelensky somehow did not get rebuffed at all by Trump at the Vatican when they had their little side funeral meeting? That would imply to me that Trump made some secret promises to him, or at least is goading this little turd on into doing worse things, because I don't think he would take, I mean, as much of a turd as he is, I don't think he's like completely moronic to make that kind of action without knowing that he has his big brother behind him. If he gets in a bigger skirmish, that Uncle Sam's going to be behind him.
I don't think it'd be blows. I don't think it'd be the British. I think it'd be the British though who'd be pushing us, not Trump. I think that the British should come in and say, "Hey, you go ahead and do this. We'll help smooth things over with the Americans. This is a legitimate military target. We will help you. I mean, we got you." And I don't know, because I don't know what it is. It must be something in the water over there in Britain lately. But the entire leadership in that country is insane.
Naftali Bennett. Thank you, Adrian. That's who it was. Naftali Bennett over in Israel was the one that leaked out little Z-Man's fears of like, don't let them kill me. So
I don't know. I mean, this is just insane. I think this is probably the most dangerous time of the year right now, where we are right now.
Yes.
For escalation.
Yes. When the weather warms up and everything's thawed out and the ground gets hard, this is rife for big blowups.
Yeah, because I'm not a military analyst. I don't pretend to be one. I'm not Mark Slobota, but I do read a lot of his stuff, and I look at them. You know me, I'm a nerd. I like looking at maps. It's what I do. And I mean, there's only one reason I can think of that the Russians would be pushing into Sumy. It's because they want to take the city of Sumy. If they do, the way to Kiev is wide open.
Well, I hope this little turd bomber thinks critically before getting too big for his britches come Victory Day, because that's a couple of days off and some big name people are. How much cocaine
do you think you have to take before making that decision?
I mean, you can build a tolerance for it. So I don't know. For this little dude, he looks like he's like my size. I mean, he's heavier than me, but I don't know. He probably can tolerate a lot. Remember, he was an actor, so you can build up a tolerance. So he's probably busting rail after rail to get that kind of like, I'm He-Man.
I wonder if his wife's in France. If she is, I think that we'll know he's dumb enough to try something. If she's at home in Kiev, probably not. But if his wife's out of the country, all bets are off.
Good point. And by the way, what she's wearing there, getting off their private jet, what she's wearing there is what Vladimir should have worn to the Pope's funeral. In fact, I think that might be his because they're about the same size. But that's really what he should have worn to the Pope's funeral. Not what he did wear is like the shirt version of cargo pants. Anyway, on to our next story. Robby, you're going to hate this one.
Yep.
You're going to hate but love it.
But before we do that, though, we got an ad. You want me to go ahead and read it?
Ooh, yes, please.
All right, let's go ahead and
do
do
this. A word from our sponsor today.
And this actually ties right in what we were just talking about earlier. Straight from Rumble.
Okay.
Just a moment here. This sponsorship is from Rumble, one that is incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They're fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Rumble did not. They held the line. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They are attacked by corporate media. They are attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech. Rumble's fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive without brand advertisers. They just don't get much of it. Watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO, or you can click that premium button right here on the channel. That I should help out the TMI show. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy to have you watch us here on Rumble.
Thank you, Rumble. And thank you to those who are able to subscribe by clicking that red Rumble Premium button right below our video player box right here. And that will also go to help this show so we can continue to do it for you. It helps support little creators like us directly. So there you go. All right, on to the second to last story. We won't stay too long on this. But Robby, you're gonna sort of like this. So Pride preparations are already underway. Remember, Pride Month every June. Shut up, Robby. I'm gonna mute you. Major corporations have reduced their support for New York City Pride events for 2025, the Wall Street Journal reporting. Companies are reportedly reassessing their LGBTQ sponsorships under mounting political pressure and economic concerns. Financial services giant MasterCard has confirmed it will not renew its platinum level sponsorship of the city's annual LGBTQAI++++ march. However, the company said it will still participate in the June parade and other events, despite some of the cutbacks. Quote, MasterCard is a long-standing supporter of the many communities of which our employees are members, including the LGBTQIA, I said AI, IA community globally. The Wall Street Journal quoted a company spokesperson, of course. PepsiCo, Nissan, Citibank, PricewaterhouseCoopers have also opted not to renew their corporate sponsorships this year, according to the Journal. However, many companies are not withdrawing entirely. Some are maintaining a smaller paid presence through branded booths or supporting smaller little side events, like little side hustles. Of course, they have their, you'll see their MasterCard booth. Sign up for MasterCard. Let me put you in debt. Nissan's move was part of a broader review of marketing and sales spending, a company spokesperson telling the media. Other Pride events, such as those in St. Louis and San Francisco, are reportedly losing key sponsors like alcoholic beverage companies like Anheuser-Busch, InBev, and Diageo, though the latter will continue sponsorships through its Smirnoff brand. So Smirnoff is owned by Diageo. Eve Keller, co-president of the United States Association of Prides, attributed the pullback to, quote, multi-layered factors, including political pressure on DEI, economic uncertainty, of course, because of the tariffs. And Keller told the Journal that fear of political backlash has even led some companies to request removal of their logos from Pride material. So they'll donate and give money, but on the low. They're on the low. They don't want anyone to know that. Changes to New York City's Pride sponsor packages, which no longer include access to certain marketing events, also contributed to some companies' decision not to renew. A recent survey by Gravity Research found that nearly 40% of executives plan to reduce their Pride-related activities this year. That's up sharply from 9% last year. So there was a little bit of a dip already last year in Biden's final months as president. So they saw almost a 10% dip last year, but now it's up 40% of people pulling back on their companies. Concerns about potential DEI investigations by the federal government have been cited as the primary reason for those cancellations, followed by potential backlash from conservative activists and consumers. Despite that shifting landscape, 2/3 of last year's New York City Pride sponsors have recommitted for this year. Target, the shopping giant, the retail giant, faced boycotts last year. They'll reportedly reaffirm support and return as a platinum sponsor. So what we're looking at on screen is last year's New York Pride Parade. It's probably the biggest one in all of the United States. Washington, D.C. has a fairly large one. L.A. and San Fran have really big ones. You know, Robby, I'm not real huge.
Tel Aviv has a huge one. Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, I'm not real big on these like social justice warrior, like it's just not my beat. I'm not that into it. Go ahead and have your parade. Go ahead and do whatever. And I feel like companies are there to do what they do, make money. They don't give a shit about you. If people think, oh, we really care about pride, we really care about marginalized communities, we really care. Give me a break. They are only there to serve their own masters, which is the board, who is there to serve the masters, which are the stockholders, the shareholders. That's all they're there for. So whatever's popular in pop culture, if whatever way the pop culture winds blow, and in this case, it's blowing in this direction for the last 10 years, was blowing in the rainbow flag direction. The wind was in their sails, but not so much anymore, because I think a lot of the public has seen the Pride action as going a bridge too far, that we started integrating,
Now, you mean marching little kids down the streets, or people having sex acts with each other? You mean that's not a socially acceptable thing?
I think that's where we're seeing the backlash from the majority of Americans who are like, dude, we were fine with you getting married. We were fine with you adopting kids. But now this is like too much. You're having drag story hour. You're doing trans surgeries on, 10-year-olds. This is too much. It's a bridge too far. And Americans are pushing back. So obviously, companies are responding to that.
I'm looking forward to more and more people get as radical as I am about this topic, because there's an old saying, pride goeth before the fall. Well, what do you call that? And I'm just going to say one thing real quick, because we're streaming on YouTube and I don't want to get our YouTube channel blown up again. Stick to heterosexual sex. Find yourself a cute girl, find yourself a cute dude, have sex, and make babies. Babies are awesome, because they live later on. They'll grow up. They'll become productive taxpayers. They can actually advance your civilization. Kids are a good thing. This is a death culture. It's not a lifestyle. It is poison. It is a social pathogen. It should be outlawed. It should be banned. If I had it my way, it would be. Well, I don't.
Look,
but Vladimir, if you want to fight against this crap,
outlawed that stuff.
Yeah, but we don't live in Russia.
Not outlawed. I know. Not outlawing gayness or trans or any of that. He's outlawed parades and
he understands displays. Well, like I said on our show about the trannies, I mean, this is a recruitment drive. Let's call it what it is. This is a recruitment drive. This is them targeting
Remember, we're
kids.
still on YouTube.
Robby. I know that's. Hey, listen. I'm being very, very judicious with my speech. I'm not saying what I want to say. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, the first gay pride event happened back in the book of Genesis. Look it up if you're curious about what that is. Yeah. So look at Lot. Little hint for you. All I'm going to say is that I'm glad to see there is a pushback against this death style. It is disgusting. It is a pathogen. That's a hill I will die on. They are targeting kids. And as a Christian, I'm always told, hey, don't shove your beliefs down my throat when you have
I agree.
that crap on your screen where they literally will shove something down your throat. And if you don't accept it, they're going to call you a phobe. I'm not a phobe. I'm not afraid of that. I'm disgusted by it. That's what I'm going to say.
Yikes. Well, I'm, when it involves kids and you're pushing a little too far that way, outside of that, I am totally fine with it. I'm from LA. I have friends that are in this community. I love them. I respect them.
How's LA doing
if they
right
want
now?
me to call them a they them, most of the rainbow flag friends I have are not they thems. They know that they either have a penis or a vagina and they identify as such. But that's just me. They're kind of the normie as it were, the normie gays or the normie lesbians. They are not for sexualizing children. I personally just the part I don't like about the pride parades when I lived in downtown DC, my only problem with it was because I lived there, like right smack downtown where the parades would happen every year. I hate the noise, I hate the crowd, I hate the congestion, I hate all the drunk and overt sexual behavior and half nakedness of people that really shouldn't be half naked parading around.
It's sick.
I'm conservative that way. I've never been a girl to, dress real slutty, and I've just never been. Fine, go if you have that kind of figure, go shake what your mama gave you. That's fine. Go enjoy. That's not for me. So that's not how I roll.
No.
I'm personally more conservative, but that's what I hated about the Pride Parade. That's all. Just because I lived in the thick of it.
What you do in your house, I could care less.
I
have a problem with this crap because what this goes to show, it's over-sexualized.
And children are exposed to it.
And it's. Can you explain one good thing, one good societal thing that's ever come out of this? Just one. Tell me one thing.
That a lot of marginalized people who were living in the shadows, these people, like the people that let's say in the 1950s or 1960s, who were closeted gay.
How are you marginalized?
They couldn't come out.
Who cares? Who cares who you sleep with?
I care.
Seriously, who cares who you sleep with?
But that wasn't society back then. So I think a lot of the movement has done well to provide a path forward for equal and fair treatment for a lot of these people in order to not be discriminated by who they go to bed with, who they want to marry.
It's done exceptionally well if you want to castrate kids and confuse them.
No, not that part. No, not that part.
Hey, it's all related. Manila, this crap is all related. This is all related. It starts with this.
You view it as a slippery slope.
No, it's not a slippery slope, Manila. It's a freaking cliff.
You're asking me, but your question to me was, what good has it done to society? And I said, there's a number of people who were otherwise forced to live in the shadows, in the closet, for fear of retribution, for fear of losing their jobs, for fear. So for those people, I am very glad that we have the LGBTQ laws that we have to not discriminate against them. I believe that they have the same human rights as any one of us. But now you start dragging all of this sexual identity stuff into kids. That's where I draw the line, because I'm a suburban normie mom, right? You start dragging shit in front of my kid and I'm going to smack you. But this, like, that's fine. Like, you want to celebrate who you are, that you don't, you now have the same rights as Robby and I to get married. You have the same rights under the law to be protected, to rent an apartment, to get a job, can't be fired for who you love. I think that's a great thing. And I think that is great social progress to not discriminate against people. So I think, but up to that point, and like, that's it.
Yeah. But does it ever stop? I think looking at the screen is that the answer is no. So no one of us grows, Manila. What else can grow and have a really happy life? Cancer, until it kills you. That's what this is. This is a societal cancer, and it will kill Western society. This is a social pathogen.
And
It will
Peter
kill the West.
in the chat, Peter in the Rumble chat says, now gay people can know the same responsibilities and the negatives of marriage. Yes, they now have the right to get divorced, just like you and me. So there you are. Divorce for everybody. It's true. All right. Yeah. One more story. One more story. We got to wrap it up.
Well, at least Basta now has put me in the TED in the TED box. He doesn't like TED now. He doesn't like me either, and I'm good with that. That's fine.
So well, because you and Ted are very extreme on opposite ends.
Yeah.
That tells me that most people are not very extreme, and that
most people are in the middle.
That viewer Bast is in there, like with me, like some things I'm a little more left, some things I'm a little more right, but for the most part, I exist in the middle, and I don't think people like me, which I think is the majority of Americans, should be shamed for being a balanced and clear-headed thinker, that we don't hate and we don't overly zealously love something, that we think clearly down the middle. We're not emotional about it. And it's just like, hey, this makes sense. Hey, that doesn't make sense. Hey, be nice to each other. Hey, so I don't have severe feelings one way or the other, except for how I feel about Volodymyr Zelensky.
Well, he's easy to hate. I think it's one thing that all red-blooded Americans can agree on. Probably even Bass will agree with me on this. Is that Zelensky could get kicked out of a plane and the world would be a better place.
I don't even hate Donald Trump. I find him a lot of things, but hate is not one of the things I find when I
Trump is a disgusting failed president, and he's a
lot of things. And
he has lied to his supporters not once but twice in two separate presidential elections. I think that's fair to say.
So here's a last topic, and I find this kind of funny because I'm a Californian, and this is kind of ridiculous to me. So Donald Trump said he had ordered the restoration and reopening of the famed Alcatraz prison on a little island in San Francisco Bay to house the country's most dangerous criminals. Quote, "Today, I am directing the Bureau of Prisons together with the Department of Justice, FBI, and Homeland Security to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz," all caps, "to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders," Trump said on Truth Social. Trump added that the reopening of the prison will be, quote, "a symbol of law, order, and justice." Trump has said he plans to revive Alcatraz Island's historic role as a maximum security federal penitentiary. The U.S. requires a place for, quote, "the dregs of society," also in his truth this weekend, as his deportation initiatives continue to face opposition in the courts. Now, I'm going to point this out, is that, remember, he talked about another island, like in the first 20 days, saying that he was going to use Gitmo to send all the migrants there, and that, I don't know what happened to that program, if it ever became a program, but it just kind of fell off the face of the map, because it was not, probably doable, and it would cost $1 gazillion per head to be sent there. But anyway, so now
he's in Ecuador instead, or not Ecuador, El Salvador.
So Gitmo's not a thing anymore, but now he's realized, oh yeah, we have this little island right here. We have our own little island that I can control. So he's now saying, let's go to Alcatraz. So originally constructed as a military fortress off the coast of San Francisco, Alcatraz served as a correctional facility for nearly 30 years. Johnny Cash, remember, was sent there for a little bit. Wrote many songs there.
His daddy was there. His daddy was there. He went. Johnny Cash's dad was there, and so he went there. He did a free concert for the prisoners. No, it wasn't Alcatraz. It was.
Are you sure?
Yeah. No, there's another big prison there in California. What the hell? I can't remember what the name of it is.
I can't.
But he did a big old concert because his daddy was there. He actually he actually introduced his dad. Said, "No, this is my dad," and his dad was an inmate there. San Quentin.
San Quentin. That's it. I was like, I know this name. It's a Hispanic name. I couldn't.
Yeah, no, it's not it wasn't Alcatraz, but no, he called his daddy up, and he said,
"Thank you for the
Johnny Cash, and this is my daddy." Well, I listen to country music, like any good self-respecting Southerner.
That's right. Well, Alcatraz here, this little island, it was operational for 30 years, but then it shut down over 60 years ago, transformed it into a tourist destination. It's a museum. Trump said he had instructed the Department of Justice to reopen a substantial, I don't know if he means all of it, portion of it. I don't know. It's not clear at this point because
no, it's Folsom Prison. I lied. It was Folsom Prison. It was Folsom Prison.
San Quentin is our big one, though. Yeah, you're right. San Quentin is our big one. Folsom.
No, I just Googled it.
Wasn't it called Songs from Folsom or something like that?
Yeah, so, Folsom Prison Blues. I looked it up.
That's it. Trump says, we will no longer be held hostage to criminals, thugs, and judges that are afraid to do their job, and allow us to remove criminals who came into our country illegally. And he's describing this conversion as a symbol of law, order, and justice. Now, having campaigned for the presidency with a promise to deport illegals, Trump has encountered resistance from the courts, which interprets the administration's procedures as violations of due process rights, which Ted and I agree with. If you're on U.S. soil, you get due process rights. Positioned in a remote locale around 2 kilometers off the California coast, Alcatraz, often referred to as the Rock, is notorious for its supposed inescapability. Of 36 inmates who attempted to flee, none were confirmed to have succeeded, though 5 remain listed as missing and presumed drowned. The structure sits on top of this island that was initially erected in the 1850s, Robby, 1850s, as a military citadel to safeguard the San Francisco Bay. The DOJ assumed control in 1933, utilizing it as a prison until 1963. It's a culturally significant landmark regarded as a symbol of governmental pushback against rampant crime in the early 20th century. And then they deemed it was eventually, it was too expensive to maintain as a prison because, I mean, obviously it's out in the middle, middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Well, that's because California doesn't have a printing press. The federal government does. So if you can print all the money that you need, I mean, that kind of takes care of that problem. But my whole question is first, why do you need it? If your main concern is the illegals, just deport the bastards and be done. I mean, this is dumb.
Yeah, I don't know how he's connecting the two, but he is. I don't know if he's intending on sending illegal migrants to Alcatraz or what the idea is, because he didn't do a good job in his tweet or in his truth about what that meant. Like, what does this have to do with illegals? Like, open it. All right, whatever. I just think that's a funny thing because Californians know, like, this is ridiculous.
If he's looking for a giant prison, he could always just send him to Gaza. Just saying. I mean, it's the largest open air prison on the planet. He
probably would, Robby. Don't give any ideas. This is just to me, this is a funny story because my whole life, obviously, I've only known it as a tourist spot. And these are pictures of the criminals that try to swim away, presumed dead. Whitey Bulger, I guess, was there at some point. Is that right? Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never really followed it. I stayed Alcatraz when they first up as a fort because they were worried that if a war happened with Britain, that the British would raid San Francisco and raid the gold mint there, because that's where they used to mint coins.
Because because
so that's why it was originally was a fort, because it's kind of like Fort Pickens in Pensacola or Fort Sumter in Charleston. So it was just it was to protect you against the British Navy, is what it was originally for.
Yeah. So this is from the 1850s. And on that note as well, also in the 1850s or 60s, memory doesn't serve. Robby, fact check me as I'm talking. Today is Cinco de Mayo. The actual translation is 5th of May. But why this day is significant? No, it is not Mexican Independence Day, coming from a California girl who was raised around all Mexicans. This is not their Independence Day. To all the whiteys out there and other non-Latinos, non-Mexicans, actually.
No, that's when they beat the French.
That's correct. This is the day that they pushed the French out of the Battle of Puebla, and they pushed the French out of Mexico. Remember, the French all took over that area, and that's why they owned
Yeah,
They
they
owned
installed the Emperor
Louisiana.
Maximilian. Yeah, they
That's
installed
right.
the Emperor Maximilian. He was their puppet. And fun fact, the only war Mexico has ever won was against the French. And I like to needle Ted on that so much. So much
That's
fun.
too bad Ted's not here. But that's exactly what Cinco de Mayo is. And when I was young and fun and single, I used to go, obviously in LA. It's a big thing, and it's used as a big cultural thing as well. It is so much fun in Los Angeles. That is something I really miss about home, is like the fantastic Mexican food. And we always looked forward to, I looked forward to Cinco de Mayo as much as a young adult in my early 20s, as much as I looked forward to 4th of July as a kid, because it was just all the festivities and all the food. And it was a cool holiday. So happy Cinco de Mayo to all my Mexican friends out there. Good job pushing out those French revolutionaries.
Yeah. Oh, we got another ad. You want it?
Oh, let's roll it.
Yeah.
Word from our sponsor before we go.
Yep. Word from our sponsor. Just 1 second here. If you're looking for a great place online for news, discussion, entertainment, then check out Truth Social, Donald Trump's social media website. You get breaking news stories and commentary from top media figures. If you want to see Trump's legendary Truth Social posts, then go on Truth Social today. Join a growing community of patriots on a free speech platform designed to avoid censorship and cancelization by big tech. Make your voice heard. Join the movement. Join Truth Social.
That's where you'll hear directly from the Donald, the president himself. That is obviously his preferred platform of choice.
Yep.
So,
Nope. I agree. And I'm just saying something real quick. Boss, I appreciate your comment. I was looking a little bit, and he said, Robby and Ted are both wrong, but at least Robby shoots straight. One thing I can promise any of y'all in the chat, I can guarantee most of y'all are not going to agree with me, but you'll never have any questions about where I stand. I mean,
yes,
so
there's no ambiguity
there's
on where Robby's positions are, of course. Sometimes they're harsh. Like yours is harsh one way and Ted's are harsh the other. But at least there's zero ambiguity about what your beliefs are, your positions. So I appreciate that. Anyway, we got to bring this to close because we're still a little bit over. We got to still work on this timing. Maybe trim down the story amounts. All right. Well, we'll work on that outside of the show.
Yeah, maybe 4 stories instead of 5.
Yeah, this was 4. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you smash that like button. I don't know what they teach you Southerners. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back. Robby and I, it's just Robby and I this week. And we are sorting out our premium content this week as well, while Ted's out of town, because I have nobody to object, really. Robby would just be rolling with the punches.
I don't care.
That's right. Robby will roll with the punches. Ted will
I'll tell you what, though, when we do our Rumble premium shows, you'll see Robby unfiltered. So there is that.
Oh, good Lord. All right, guys. Good Lord. Like, please protect us. Good Lord. Okay. All right. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Happy Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Adios, amigos.
Bye,
Cinco
y'all.
de Mayo. I wish I had Mexican music to play us out.
I'm glad you don't.
Mexicans.
I'm glad you don't.
I miss my Mexicans in LA. Bye, guys. I miss you guys.
We could always just sing the Bonnie Blue Flag.
I don't know that one. I don't know. Adios.
Bye, y'all.